This is SUNY New Paltz. At first glance, it's what you'd expect out of a typical college campus. Look a little closer, however, and you'll find that it's home to some surprisingly diverse architecture. Between the angled glass walls of the atrium, the rustic feel of Old Main, and the modern feel of the science halls, it's almost impossible to pin an architectural style on New Paltz. For students here, this is common knowledge. What's less common is that in the middle of this hodgepodge of styles, there's one hiding that's more sinister than the rest. One that is actively working to inconvenience students. One that's specifically designed to keep students from gathering or protesting. This is the story of anti-protest architecture at SUNY New Paltz. There's a lot that you can assume about anti-protest architecture from the name alone, but we wanted more specifics. We decided to approach some of the history professors at SUNY New Paltz to see what they knew about the matter, and what makes anti-protest architecture anti-protest.
Well, steep walls and high windows. Now, the administration building is a little bit different because there they want people to come in, but it's still this kind of straight-up tower where it can be closed off. And no one articulated it as such, oh, we're doing this to crack down on the prevent campus protests, but back at the time, everybody knew this was going on.
I've lived in New Paltz for 55 years. I came here in 1968. There were protests here, there were protests everywhere across the country, and we had them here, and we had building takeovers, we had demonstrations on them all, we had marches.
They took over the president's office back when it was over in Old Main. This is now 50, almost 60 years ago now, where the culture of the campus was A, quite different, and B, certainly in quarters like New York State, it was regarded as kind of out of control. Also, you don't have to be protest architecture or anti-protest architecture to clamp down on this kind of thing. And you ever heard of the tripping fields? Okay, and they're over there, but now they built dorms on them. I think that area was picked in part to crack down on this kind of culture that New Paltz is a party drug school, and I mean, fair play, but we need to take this into hand. And the protests were really at the forefront of this. So that in the end, when a riot takes place, the cops can come in and seal off the protesters and make sure that they don't do things like occupy the president's office and run up the phone bill, or ideally to prevent a mass protest from taking over a building. It's hard to exaggerate the fear about that happening. I mean, that when this happened, freaked people out. The design was both architecturally and especially culturally to stamp this kind of thing out.
Yeah, we had the war on, we had the assassination of President Kennedy, we had massive social inequality, we had demonstrations in Chicago about presidential nominations and so on. So it wasn't a laid back, this school was known as a party school, a laid back, cool place where you could buy dope downtown. But that was only a small, I don't know whether I could say small, but one of many aspects of the nature of the school.
I think New Paltz, how we define it, wants to leave that kind of thing in the past, but I can't say for absolute certainty because I haven't seen them, but I know that there are plans somewhere from 1970, 71 about how to retake buildings if they're taken over. I mean, that was actually, this got to the point people knew this was happening, and they're probably in some storeroom somewhere. And someone knows where they are, and we'll take them out if it comes to that. We have plans are around, and they can be deployed if someone either thinks they need to be or freaks out again, or the situation becomes perceived to be unmanageable.
So now we understand what defines anti-protest architecture. Infrastructure that was put into place to keep a population under control. We wondered what the students would think about living with this phenomenon, so we went to the head of the WFNP, the student-run radio station at New Paltz.
I first learned about it when we were all tripping down those awful stairs that are between like Scudder and that other dorm. I think it might be Gage. Those are the worst. I was kind of interested in why they were built like that, so I looked it up, and apparently it's anti-protest architecture. So it's a form of social control, actually. It is designed to control people and how they interact in a space. Hard to see around corners. It's so you can't really see clearly through a space. It's hard to drive vehicles through. It's designed specifically to kind of moderate how people interact. You can't fit large groups of people. You can't walk super fast like those stairs I was telling you about. A lot of this started to pop up in France, actually, because the French are known for some pretty excellent protesting. And it was kind of designed with how the streets are designed. And they made this big barricade out of like furniture and tables and all kinds of things. And so the city planners realized, well, to keep these workers in control and keep them like working for unlivable wages, we have to design things better so that way they can't protest as easily. So then it kind of, when Robert Moses moved in, again, it's a form of social control. So they were trying to, maintain segregation a little bit, keep the poor folks away from the rich folks, which oftentimes was poor folks of color. And that kind of architecture was really meant to, separate spaces from people. There's a lot of benches that are kind of just these weird slanty triangles that you can't quite sit on, and that's designed to keep homeless people out of a space. Also, the stairs that lead down to where the lecture center walk kind of is, those are spaced really badly. You can't walk down them two at a time. You can't really walk down them one at a time. They're just awkward to kind of manage. So, again, it's a form of social control. I find it to be, unsettling in a way. A lot of people try to blame it on a lot of brutalist architecture, but the architecture that's present on campus, it's kind of like, if you don't know what it means, it's kind of an inconvenience. But if you do know what it means, it's kind of like, wow, they're really trying to control us with this. It's just kind of eerie. Like, why is this still around? They're almost monuments to, controlling the populace. So when the Vietnam War is going on, the Cold War kind of thing, a lot of that architecture was in fashion, and just like most things in America, it's all about the money, and concrete was really cheap at that time, so a lot of buildings were built with that kind of material. And concrete isn't really a very happy material to look at, and the kind of very angular shapes and things like that. So in a long time, and alongside with that, was a lot of on-campus protest from the Vietnam War. It is absolutely a form of social control, like I keep saying. It's designed to make your space practically unlivable. Just being aware of what your surroundings are and how it's being used to influence you and your behaviors, I think is very, very important, because if you don't notice them or you don't think about it too often, you're already being controlled. Not to be, again, question authority, but just having awareness of your surroundings, I think, is incredibly important for critical thinking and kind of being able to question why things are like that, not being so passive about oh, this is just this way because, I don't know why the stairs are like that. They're just like that. The builders did a bad job. It's like, no, they did that on purpose. That was on purpose. Like I always say, especially in the art world, nothing is done by accident. And even if it was an accident, you chose to keep that accident.
At this point, it became clear to us just how important this issue was, and we wanted to see what the students on campus thought about it.
Hi, I'm Chelsea.
Hi, I'm Nick.
I'm Jake.
Avery.
Lauren Abbott.
Leo Gomez.
Luca Aiello.
Natasha.
I'm Sierra.
I'm Tiana Yenser.
Vincent Crienza.
You see these stairs behind you? Wouldn't you say that they're a little difficult to get through?
Yes, yes, they are.
These ones I feel like are kind of dangerous. I feel like the rest of them I can kind of bomb my way down. These especially are a little uneven towards the top, and I think it's definitely a rough spot if you're not paying attention.
Oh, I hate these stairs. I literally almost trip on them every day because they're so uneven.
I honestly hate them. I trip up them every single day, and then I have a really bad ankle that I just got surgery on, so I can't walk properly.
I think about them often, and I used to live in Scudder, and I didn't really know why they were wonky. I just thought that was weird, and then I heard something about anti-riot architecture, and that made me really mad, and especially the looping of the paths too. There's no straight line to any one building, and so it just makes traveling across campus a lot harder.
Oh, the stairs here. These are riot stairs. I learned that a week ago. Yeah. I was complaining about how they are not the same size, and my friend is like, oh, they're anti-riot stairs, that's why.
While some students started telling us about anti-protest architecture as soon as we brought up the stairs, others had no idea what we were talking about.
Do you know anything about anti-protest architecture?
No.
I don't. Can you tell me anything about it?
I do not. No, I do not.
I have not.
A lot of students say that these stairs are anti-protest architecture. How do you feel about that?
I think it's an interesting concept.
I could see it. I can understand just the way that they are built in general. They aren't big enough for you to sit on them in the first place, and they're too low for you to be able to sit on them in the first place.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. So it's anti-protest, the stairs is what you said?
If someone was to say, oh, during the 60s these were renovated and that these are anti-protest, like, how would that make you perceive the school?
Definitely not in a great light.
It's very disappointing to have, I guess, like school authorities not be supportive of that, although I can't say I'm that surprised.
I wouldn't like to believe that, but I do think that's true.
I think it's crazy. Like, the fact that they needed to install this back in the day, that's wild.
That sucks. Like, aren't we supposed to feel free? Aren't we supposed to feel like a community, feel like we can speak up on issues? Yeah, that sucks.
If that's like true, that's definitely like not great to hear. I don't know. I'd rather they fix them up.
It makes me want to protest. It makes me angry. I want to find a way that my self-expression won't be limited. So like if there was a large protest on campus, it would be ideal if like these stairs weren't like this. But I think it's just most offensive that this limit was placed on purpose to like inhibit the way I express myself on my campus.
Anti-protest architecture is easy to ignore. It's easy to say that the stairs were just built wrong, that the walkways are indirect by accident, that brutalist architecture was only used because it was cheap. But the truth isn't always easy, and the truth is that architecture has, is, and will always be used to control people. You might have never noticed before, which is why it might be a good idea to take a second, just to look around.